Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the pub, me, Chris and Pat, to answer your questions. The first one was sent in by the Scrabble King, and he says, what do you make of the Bobby Firmino to Barcelona rumours, and would he be a good replacement for Luis Saurez? Now, we discussed this briefly amongst ourselves in the office. Pat, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so basically, OK Diario say that at the end of the season, Barcelona are going to try and get Bobby Firmino in as a long-term replacement for Luis Saurez. Now, apparently, they claim that Coutinho has recommended Firmino to Barcelona, which is definitely how that would work.
And the Liverpool fans are
100%, man.
Yeah, they're obviously livid about it. And there are a few questions here. One is, does Suarez need replacing? Two, is Firmino the right guy to do it? And three, what is the long-term plan for Messi if they were to buy another number 9? Now, I do think that it's become time for Suarez to be replaced. He's still a very good player, but I looked at his goals the last few seasons, and it went 40, 29, 25. Assists went 16, 13, 12. He's taking fewer shots, creating fewer chances. He's less mobile than he was, which is kind of a problem because his role was always to move and make space for Messi. And you'd have thought Firmino might be quite good for that. However, it doesn't really make sense to me. I think if you want to get the best out of Messi, you've either got to put him in the kind of Iniesta role in midfield, in which case I think you want a dedicated, pure goal scorer at number 9, or you can play Messi as a number 9 with Malcolm and Dembele and Coutinho behind him, in which case I think you want to spend more money in central midfield.
Yeah, I agree. I think that... Look, I actually said a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a couple of months ago, that I thought Bobby Firmino would fit in that Barcelona system. But having watched Barcelona this season and watched Messi gradually drop deeper, I don't think it works having Bobby Firmino in there. I think Bobby Firmino will try and fill spaces in a Barcelona side, as he does with Liverpool, drops deep, really good defensive output, helps link the forwards to the midfielders, and the wingers are allowed way more space because of it. I think if he does that at Barcelona, he fills the exact same space Messi wants to occupy.
I think he'd be great for Barcelona, but I don't necessarily think he's a great replacement for Suarez. I think a 32, 33, 34-year-old Suarez still scores more goals at the end of the season than Bobby Firmino. What was it last year? 15 in the league?
16, I think.
Yeah,
16, quite possibly. At this point in the season, Suarez is still taking twice as many shots as Firmino in a game. And like you said, at Liverpool, he's almost a second striker. He's that false number 9, and that works because they have goal-scoring wide men.
Yeah,
now, if they bring Firmino in, they have to find out where Messi fits in midfield, which is more of an issue, like you said, because that's probably one of their more unbalanced segments of the team at this point, as well as defence, which we're going to touch upon in a minute. But if Valverde has plans to go to a 4-3-3 and expects huge output from Dembele and Malcolm on that right-hand side and left-hand side, then okay, that kind of makes sense. But already, at the start of this season, they're thinking about going back to a 4-4-2, which makes this even less likely in my eyes, unless he's going to treat Dembele and Malcolm like traditional wingers, which I don't think he will, having played Rakitic out wide last season. Do any of us think
Valverde's going to be there next season? Because I don't.
It's really tough to tell, isn't it?
Probably not.
They've trusted him with a lot of money, but the Barcelona fans don't like his style of play. But I think the Barcelona boardroom will like the stability he brings to the club. So yeah, it's really difficult to judge. But Bobby Firmino, I mean, so far this season, 2 goals in 8 Premier League starts, 2 assists as well. Suarez has still contributed to 6 goals in 7 starts. So yeah, like Pato said, if you're after those raw number 9 numbers, that output, he's not necessarily your guy.
And also in the Champions League, Suarez has declined a lot. Like I think in the 14-15 season, it was over a goal or assist every game. Now I think it's 1 every 2.5 games. So that's a big drop off when you're hoping that guy is the one who makes the difference in the big matches. And it really seems in Barcelona, based on what they've done with managers over the last few years, that domestic success is simply not enough. They demand Champions League success. But the thing is, they've actually, all those players are creators really. Like if Messi drops deeper as he gets older, they won't have a single player there who's actually more of a goal scorer than a creator. The one thing that Malcolm has that's exceptional well, two things. He's really good at carrying the ball from deep,
Shooting.
and he's got phenomenal chance creation numbers. He actually doesn't get shots from good areas. Dembele, always been a creator rather than a goal scorer. Coutinho, creator rather than a goal scorer. So all these guys can score as well, but what you want there is somebody who is just going to put the ball in the net.
I completely agree, because wouldn't trust Dembele and Malcolm, especially, let's say, next season, this early in their young careers, to produce output that you saw from Liverpool last season from Sadio Mane and obviously Mohamed Salah in terms of goals. Because that's what made Bobby Firmino so effective, is when he dropped into that space between midfield and attack, he dragged the defender with him, leaving space for the two wide men to come centrally. I don't see Malcolm coming into that almost striking area to score goals. I think he's a natural wide man.
Or it's not what he's good at anyway. It's possible he could turn into that, but why buy a guy when that's not his natural game and try and convert him into that?
Especially as they're already struggling as to what to do with Messi. Do they make Messi an out-and-out 9? He's going to score a bucket load of goals and he's going to play more advanced. Or do they put him in that Iniesta position? And if they do, what the does that mean for Philippe Coutinho?
He's been the best this season as a second striker, still working very closely to Suarez. We saw it against Bilbao when he had to come on in the last half an hour, still took 5 shots, still dragged Barcelona back into the game when Suarez was misfiring. But Suarez, most of his assists are for Messi. They do dovetail together really nicely, and when Messi's playing closer to Suarez, you get the best out of Suarez as well. So dropping Messi deeper, and bringing in a replacement for Suarez seems like not one but kind of 2 mistakes on that front. Now, I actually think Barcelona this season, as well as not being as good at pressing in the opposition's final third, have really struggled in defence, and they've struggled I suppose, to really safeguard Busquets in midfield in that 4-3-3. So what other areas of the side would you look to improve before maybe spending big money on someone like Roberto Firmino?
I think central midfield is a concern. I like the guys they brought in. I think Arturo Vidal and Arthur, who's started really well. Those were good signings this summer, but Busquets has been poor so far this season. It was weird that after they beat Spurs 4-2, everyone said what a brilliant performance this was from Barcelona, and people didn't seem to notice the fact that Spurs, who we all said were terrible on the day, scored 2 goals and got through kind of a lot in the first half.
And could have levelled it with Mora.
Yeah, exactly. They had chances in that game, and Busquets got exposed again and again and again. And the thing about Busquets is he's not like a Pirlo or a Xavi. He's not a guy where you think, right, okay, we will protect him with runners because his passing is so incredible. He's a very good passer, but he's not a long-range passer.
No.
And so if he's not protecting your team defensively, then it probably is a sign that you've got to start phasing him out a little bit. So they've got Ricky Puig, who's a kid coming through their academy who they're really excited about, first time in a long time. And they've got a lot of guys who can fill in. You know, they've got Rafinha and Sergio Roberto. But to me, upgrading that position, or at least finding a long-term heir to Busquets, not necessarily the same kind of player, but a guy who can fill that role, should be their focus.
Why look for a Busquets light? He's been seminal in that position, hasn't he? So this maybe should facilitate, replacing him should facilitate a slightly different tact, a change in playing style.
Yeah. But equally, they knew that Busquets was fading. In the summer, I think he went and had a number of injections just to get him through.
But against all odds, he had a brilliant season last season.
And Jorginho was available for £55 million as a metronomic defensive midfielder. Maybe not the defensive output that you expect from Sergio Busquets, but as a man who's going to sit at the base of midfield and dictate the entire tempo of the game, averaging upwards of 130 passes per game at Chelsea, and I believe even more at Napoli, in a system where they're going to have 70% possession or more, he would have been perfect as the defensive midfielder in there.
But maybe they thought, you know what, he'll have a rest this summer and we'll buy some guys who can take some minutes away from him, and next season he'll play a little bit less, he'll be a bit better rested, and we will gauge this season whether he is in decline or whether he's just tired. And that's not an unreasonable thing to do, and it's possible as well.
But it is when Jorginho is available for £50 million, and you are going to have to spend £150 million to sign a defensive midfielder.
But it's hard to be cutthroat with a guy who's been that important to your side.
Yeah, and I'd say that Jorginho's somewhat of a specialist. If you bring him in, he has to play where Sergio Busquets is playing. Whereas you bring in Arta, he can play as an 8. They do need someone to transition the ball quickly in midfield. Sergio Roberto is still getting a game.
But they still
on the
can't
right-hand side of
play.
midfield.
That midfield still doesn't work with that Busquets.
I've got 3 replacements.
I think Vidal actually, like, they don't like Vidal at the moment. Sorry.
Go on, please.
Just Vidal, I think it's possible that by January, say Vidal is a starting midfielder, he has huge defensive output, really good transition player, and Busquets looks a bit better. But right now, I completely agree, like, they need to be thinking about how they move on from Busquets, and he's looking really shaky. And it's sad because I love him.
And just before we go to your 3 replacements, I think that Barcelona need to have a clear philosophy of how they want to play the game.
Well, that's
because
the friction
at the
with
moment,
Valverde,
there's an obvious clash between Valverde's pragmatic style, the shift back into a 4-4-2 when they're not doing as well.
Although this squad is geared up for 4-4-2.
It is,
in my opinion.
But I don't know whether it is, man. Do you think?
I think they've looked much better.
Of that midfield, how does that midfield work with Busquets, Vidal, Arthur in a 4-4-2, and then where does Coutinho play? Does he play on the left? And if that happens, does that come at the detriment to Ousmane Dembele? I think it worked last season when he didn't have Ousmane as available because he didn't have to play it. Now he's almost integral.
Yeah, I think it makes them look more solid in defence, but I think it's hard to look at it as a way of getting the best out of that team. I'd prefer a 4-4-2 that was maybe a diamond or something. I don't know.
It's also not the philosophy of Barcelona, is it? The philosophy of Barcelona is ingrained in a 4-3-3.
Yeah, but I think you have to understand that sort of stuff changes. What shouldn't change is the way you play. Like, formation can change, that's fine. Personnel can change. But they're saying we're a dominant possession side who are going to press high, we're going to counter-press, and that's what you actually stay true to, and that's what you recruit for.
So why do they not
possession is still king across the top teams in Europe.
But it comes back to it. Possession, completely press resistant. Jorginho, get him in for 60, 70 million.
But it's happened now.
Okay,
we've got to move on.
So who are the 3 then?
Okay, so my 3 were, and they vary in terms of gettability.
Good word. Is that a word? Feels like a made-up
dream
word.
scenario, and maybe something a little bit more middle range. So I was pondering over this last night, and I thought, what's happened to Julian Weigl? Okay, because 2 years ago his stock was sky high.
Yeah.
His playing style was drawing comparison to Busquets, the way he guarded the ball, the way he moved things on first time, the way he could break the lines, not with long range passing, but with 10, 15 yard passes that helped to get to that attacking midfielder. So Julian Weigl, I think, could be available for a reasonable amount.
Yeah,
I don't know how Lucien Favre is using him at current, but they're a little bit more counter-attacking than they maybe were under Tuchel. I know Tuchel broke at pace, but they still had a lot of possession under Tuchel. So he might be interesting. Always very good at safeguarding the ball, always has a 90% pass accuracy, heavily involved in play, Busquets numbers of 60, 70 passes a game, right? And then I thought, despite being a right back this season for 14 of the 18 games he started, I quite like the idea of Philipp Lahm's long-term heir at CDM.
Whoa.
What?
I've just forgot his name. What is
Kimmich.
it? Josh Kimmich. Had a blank there. But Josh Kimmich, I think he's got a very unique playing style in that his defensive numbers, very big, very good on the ball, and top chance creation. He's like 2 or 3 playing profiles rolled into one, and he's got a very unique skill set. However, I do concede his future probably lies at right back, despite me wanting him to be a central midfielder, and he's kind of been best utilised there, and Bayern very much see him in that position and haven't tried to accommodate him in central midfield, at least since Kovac came in. And then someone who we agreed on quite strongly yesterday when we were shooting the pilot for the podcast, which is coming hopefully next week. Ooh.
Get excited, guys. Maybe if the podcast mics arrive, probably 2 weeks. I'll be honest, probably 2 weeks.
They are Buncy, which was Adrian Rabiot, and I'll let you explain kind of why you agree with me as well, but I just think he has got, much like Kimmich, a lot of skill sets rolled into one. He's not sort of that one-touch footballer in the same way that Busquets is. His defensive output is very solid, but if you adjust it for possession, it's probably not as good as Busquets, or at least not as kind of decisive. You know, maybe he hasn't got the match intelligence yet of a Busquets, but he seems to be doing everything in that PSG midfield. He's really stepped up since Thiago Motta left, and when I watch PSG, if you took him out, they become almost dysfunctional.
Yeah. Yeah,
But go on, I'll let you take the floor.
Well,
now.
he links the team up quite nicely. I mean, like, the thing about Rabiot is he's always been a bit of a turnover machine. Like, his tackle and interception numbers are great, obviously on a dominant possession side, which often means that you're defending in space. So he'd be used to that. He's quite press resistant. He can get forward as well. So really, really good passer. He's still very young, and it looks like he'll be available on a free at the end of this season. And after spending kind of
outrageous size.
350, 400 million euros in the last couple of seasons,
They could do with a free.
And especially a guy who is actually starting quality. Like, he is good enough to play for them regularly.
Might be a little bit of a hard one to take for Arthur, because I kind of see them as similar players while
similar,
not having watched a lot of Arthur. But
I think Rabiot is an amazing option on a free. I remember that a couple of years ago, or a year ago, they were linked back when Ander Herrera was actually putting up numbers to Ander Herrera. He's available on a free as well. So he might be a sort of player they might just come bring in as a backup.
Yeah, well, but that in a way would feel a bit more like Vidal.
Yeah,
you know, like that kind of utility.
What about an N'Golo Kante?
That would have been great. I'd have loved it if they'd gone for Kante, though they just never would. I just think it's I think it's a stylistic thing. I think they have this idea that
because he'd be amazing at the base of that midfield.
I think it's the way that it's not dissimilar to the way that Vidal has not really been liked by Barca fans off the board. They like these people who kind of like float around the pitch.
It's like a direct assault on everything they stand for.
Yeah, and I think it probably explains
output.
some of the beef with Rakitic as well. Like, they don't like these people who are like really hard workers who buzz around getting stuff
Who's
done.
one of the best, one of the most well-rounded midfielders in La Liga. Rakitic can do a bit of everything, and he's still massively underappreciated.
He arrived as a number 10 from Sevilla, basically. That's where he played in his last season at Sevilla. But I also thought Naby Keita would have been good for them. You know, that would if you wanted a guy to protect Busquets, that would have been great, and he can get the ball forward. But I mean, there are actually a few options around right now. You know, like they could go for Amadou Diawara from Napoli, who's used to possession play, good defensive output again. Or they could go for Ruben Neves. That would be an interesting sort of Busquets-y type.
Ruben Neves has got Man City written on him.
Yeah, he does.
I think stick a Brighton roll.
But don't we have this attitude now where we're like, well, if Pep wants a player, Barca should be after that player?
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah,
it feels like that's what they're trying to revert back to. You actually raised a decent point yesterday when we were talking about the importance of replacing Jordi Alba as well, who's kind of the same age as Busquets now. Maybe Busquets has a year or so on him.
With no replacement, he has no rotational option.
But there's nothing at left back, is there?
No.
There's nothing, and I was kind of thinking maybe Alex Grimaldo, maybe Gaia from Valencia, who's kind of he's replaced Cancelo, hasn't he? Was Cancelo a right back? Cancelo was a right back, so discount that last point. But he kind of fits the Barcelona profile quite well, and that Valencia to Barcelona path is a well-trodden path, isn't it? It's tried and tested. But yeah, what do you make of Jordi Alba in that sort of left back situation?
Jordi Alba definitely needs replacing. I mean, you cannot have Thomas Vermaelen as a rotational option in that fullback slot, because he will need rest. And if you look at the top teams around Europe, the fullback area is so important for them. And Barcelona, post Dani Alves, have lost that threat a little bit from that fullback area. And I think that's possibly a reason they've not travelled as well in the Champions League as they did with Alves. But a replacement for Jordi Alba is incredibly hard to find. It's a position that is highly sought after, and there's very few top quality assets in that area.
I don't know.
The signing of Benjamin Mendy was unbelievable by Manchester City when they had him and they got him. You look across Europe now, I'm looking at a dearth of world-class left backs.
There's another Mendy at Monaco, isn't there?
There's Ferland Mendy, who's at Lyon.
Oh, Lyon, that's probably what I'm thinking.
But even you look at Alexandro, who we would have probably 3 years ago, we were talking about as an unbelievable
£50 million signing for United or Chelsea.
An unbelievable left back. We look at him over the last 2 years after massive fallings out with the Juventus board, getting no younger, by the way, either.
27, 28, maybe?
Yeah.
Seems to be back at it this year. Last 6 months, sort of.
Does he command a big fee still? I don't know when his contract runs out. Not the worst option if you're Barcelona looking for a left back.
I think if I'm Barcelona, the good thing about Barcelona is they can carry a left back who's just a defender in a way other teams can't. Like a lot of other teams, they don't have such extreme kind of chance creation talent that they can just carry a guy who's not going to contribute in attack. Whereas Barcelona could get a guy who's just a really solid defender, and it kind of wouldn't matter because they've got so many good creators that they don't really need to
What about
leverage
dipping
that
in and taking
position.
Emerson Palmieri out of Chelsea? Because he's clearly not going to get any game time there.
He was linked there. He was linked there before he went, but I still maintain that Emerson is going to end up first choice left back for Chelsea this season. I think he's so much better than Alonso. And Alonso's still such a liability.
But Alonso's such a fan favourite.
Alonso. Okay, I almost tweeted this during the Spain-England game, but I almost tweeted Marcus Alonso is a shocking player everywhere except the opposition penalty area. He's a bad defender. He can't track runs. He's slow. He's not even that good in the air given his size. He's just good in the final third. He enrages me.
I know what you mean, but I think that he's such a fan favourite at Chelsea, he'll maintain his place.
Well, maybe he will for a
And
bit, but he has been a defensive problem for them this season.
And that Sarri, it's kind of, I suppose, the reverse predicament at Barcelona, right? In that Sarri, traditionally, that left-hand side is his attacking side, so they kind of make up for it elsewhere, don't they? Much like if they brought in another bang-average left-back like Lucas Digne, which they could do, as you're saying, which I pretty much agree with. They've got Nelson Semedo down the right, who continues to go from strength to strength and is creating around 1.5 chances a game.
I like looking at the signing of Nelson Semedo, and this is another point we made yesterday.
Grimaldo would be kind of the similar.
I have concerns about who's signing the Barcelona players.
Oh, sure.
Are they being signed in a manager's philosophy and his ethos to fit a system that he wants to deploy week in, week out, or are they being signed at a boardroom level for name's sake?
But there is no manager's ethos at Barcelona, right? It's Barcelona.
But that's what I'm saying. Is Valverde picking the players he's signing? I feel like Valverde's being thrown players and told to fit him into a system.
Yeah, that's
He's had
true.
fallings out with Nelson Semedo and Ousmane Dembele, two high-profile signings that Barcelona have made in the last year. And did he really want Coutinho in a 4-4-2? I'm fully aware that Coutinho smashed it and carried him towards the back end of the season domestically. Had a brilliant time of it when he came back from injury. But how did he fit into that 4-4-2 that Valverde had locked down and was going unbeaten for in January?
I think it's the sort of thing, though, that if you're a manager and they say, we're going to give you Philippe Coutinho, you're like,
you're happy.
Okay.
I'm not denying you're happy, but
it's
he's not going out and going, get me
But
Coutinho.
it wasn't to address an issue at that time, was it? It was to replace Iniesta in the long run. And I do think
But we all agree Valverde's not going to be there in the long run. So who is making the decisions?
I also thought they were going to replace Iniesta with Messi in the long run, in which case I'd have spent the money elsewhere.
But I mean, and there's a good argument for that at centre-back, isn't there? Which we've not really discussed at the moment. Piqué looks a bit out of sorts. Umtiti, when Piqué's out of sorts, Umtiti generally doesn't look as good. I suppose we've already discussed fullback. But
I think Longley and Umtiti, though, is a good...
They're going to bring in De Ligt as well now.
Yeah.
Longley and Umtiti, that's a really good pair of centre-backs going forward.
Yeah, Longley, more so a replacement for Piqué. But I mean, going back to are they his signings and will he be there for any longer than 2 seasons? I don't think you can really guarantee any longer than 3 or 4 seasons at Barcelona, and that puts the ball in the sporting director's court, doesn't it, to sign players for a system that managers are expected to adapt.
Yeah.
So if we flip it round, can you really criticise them for buying players that don't fit a 4-4-2 when 4-4-2 is...
Not necessarily, I completely agree, but I think you have to be careful that you don't just start buying players that are hot property then, that when the next manager comes in goes, I've got a massive asset, I don't know what to do with it.
They've always been quite smart with it, and they can sell players like Yerry Mina if they don't fit on for twice the price.
I think they got a bit lucky with that, but I think also, but for Firmino, for instance, to go back to that, if they spent 100 million plus on a 27-year-old Firmino, then that just seems like not really
Especially when the next manager comes
strategy.
in and goes, I want to play a 4-3-3 and I'm going to have Messi spearhead it. He looks at Firmino and goes,
what do I do with you now?
I've got a £130 million asset. I'm going to get widely panned if this guy doesn't score any goals or get any games.
Because the panic will be for Firmino, who's having like 1.8 shots a game at the moment. If he's not a prolific number 9, it will be let's put Messi back at 9
100%.
Because he will guarantee the goals, despite Firmino having 37, 40 passes a game, being able to join him with link-up play. As soon as there's any tension at Barcelona, it'll be Messi back at 9, Firmino on the bench.
I agree.
I think they just need to look at Juventus and think that's the way we need to do things. Juventus take a bunch of gambles cheaply on young players, they loan them out, and then they see which ones they think are good, and they bring them back and sometimes give them a go. And with Barcelona, it's so difficult to find a guy who's going to be the perfect number 6, who's going to be a Barcelona quality left back, a Barcelona quality centre back. What they should do is take a bunch of cheap gambles on young players every year. This should be the sporting director's job, and then if they turn out to look like they're good enough, they give them a go.
A bit like Monaco, but not quite as dramatic.
Or Leipzig or Salzburg, like Red Bull are really, really good at this. Like they got a left back in to Leipzig, Marcelo Saracchi, who came in from Argentina. Really good attacking left back, great defensive output. Maybe he doesn't end up being good enough for them in the long term, but they spent almost nothing on him.
Yeah.
And it's just worth those kinds of gambles, because if you get one of them right, you're saving yourself 60, 70, 80 million
Like you say,
pounds.
Juventus did the exact same thing with Paulo Dybala, didn't they? Barcelona should just be picking the best talent, young talent from the teams around them in the lower half and the mid-table of La
Dybala still
Liga.
costs quite a lot. But yeah.
But they're going to sell him on for what?
But Real
£100 million
Madrid,
profit?
but Real Madrid then are better at this. They got Dani Ceballos when he was going for 15 million euros. They spent, what was it, 3-4 on Asensio? They got in Theo Hernandez when he was going on cheap. Maybe these players don't work out, but it's so cheap that I think it's silly not to be taking these kind of gambles. And Barcelona haven't really done it that much
It's like
recently.
the Mattia Caldara situation. Was it Mattia Caldara they signed?
What, Juve?
Yeah, they signed.
Well,
and
people
sold straight away.
take a lot of
They
players
didn't
from
think-
Atalanta, but I think like Monaco, a very decent example of this as well. In that I was really surprised that no one else was more in for Benny Henrichs when they took him off Leverkusen. He's a really interesting player. He was the Academy Player of the Season when he broke out. He's an attacking midfielder, showed enough intelligence to be moved back to left. He's actually been playing left back for Monaco, traditionally at right back, wasn't he? Because Vendel was out on the left for Bayer Leverkusen. But he's another player that if I'm Barcelona is definitely worth a €25 million gamble on.
Yeah.
And he's slotted in seamlessly in League.
Did it with Yuri Tielemans as well?
Yeah, and I mean they've signed other players like Goebbels and who I don't know much about.
Golovin.
Yeah, Golovin. And it's not really worked out for them.
As well.
Pellegrini, but you take that hit if you're Monaco, not necessarily if you're Barcelona. Like you said, and hope that in 2 or 3 years' time you can either sell these players on for more or regenerate that kind of.
Rather than signing £150 million Bobby Firmino, who might cost even more than that.
So we're saying Firmino's a good player, would fit Barcelona, but not at this time.
I think Barcelona should avoid Bobby Firmino.
Yeah, I don't think he fit Barcelona.
But he's a fantastic player. And he would score a lot of goals there, but I think it would be at the detriment long term for Barcelona.
I think they'd be better off with a player who's actually maybe not quite as good as Firmino overall, but is better at specific things, like just goal scoring.
Like Paco.
Yeah.
Just poaching.
So
Bring
let us know
Paco
your
back.
thoughts on Bobby Firmino to Barcelona, if it's the right move for him and the club, in the comments below. Moving on to quick fire questions now then. The first one was sent in by Shaw Shagger. He says, will Thierry Henry survive in League 1?
Before we start, what do we think of the jumper? The Cookie Monster jumper.
I quite like it,
Towley
actually.
McTowel face.
Actually, yeah.
I don't like it as clothing. I like it
I'll
as
go like 60% yes. We'll put a poll out there, hot or not.
Put me on
Up
your
there.
deck chair.
Hot or not.
Sit on me.
Hot or not on that
Anyway,
that jumper, let us
bit
know
weird that.
in the poll.
Thierry Henry. Anyway,
Thierry,
I think
hot or not, Thierry?
a hot man, undisputedly, but I think it's a risk. It's a risk for both, but it's a risk worth taking for Thierry Henry. Currently occupy 18th, don't they? They've still got a lot of talent in that squad. We spoke about some of the youngsters in the last question, so I won't go over that again. But what is worrying is they're not performing that below or above expected goals scored / conceded. And I got to expected goals before you this week, so have some of that, Van Straten, all right?
Don't forget to time code the expected goals. We want to see that every single
How do
week.
you like those apples? Anyway, so that's worrying. They're not underperforming or overperforming. And there's been... I've watched a couple of games, and there's some alarming trends in that they're not as good at pressing anymore. The fullbacks, despite me praising Henrichs, aren't as good on the transition as Mendy and Sidibe, who were excellent under Jardim. And they're losing a manager who will probably prove to be somewhat of an anomaly, someone who's able to, regenerate sides time and time again. So I think there's 10 points between them and third place now, and third place is kind of Monaco's aim for this season, right?
So will he survive?
Because their ability to attract players like Golovin and sell them on, it is very much dictated by them qualifying for Champions League football, isn't it? That is crucial to their
that's a good
lifeblood,
point.
to their identity as a team, to their business model more so.
Yeah.
So will they make up those 10 points? Already seems like a tall order. But Europa League football at this point would probably be a success. I think he will at least be given this season. I'm not sure what his contract is.
I'm not
I
sure.
imagine it's longer than a year.
No, I don't know.
I think he'll survive. I actually think they'll get a bit of a boost from him coming in. Just a bit of the Zidane effect around Thierry Henry. That sort of walks into the dressing room, and I think all the players will be a little bit, bloody hell, it's Thierry Henry. Especially because they're quite young. I think he'll do pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, any man that can get away with wearing joggers and trainers at his unveiling with a suit jacket.
So I'm
You
going.
say get away
I'm
with
going.
it.
He
It was
survives.
terrible.
He says he goes survives. Pat survives.
Any thoughts on Jardim leaving as well?
I think that was a really stupid move, and I think
But Jardim wanted to go.
I don't care. They should have got rid of him in the summer then. Like I think it makes no sense to me to get rid of him 8 games into the season. And Jardim was definitely a good manager. If Henry turns out to be good, that's pure luck on Monaco's part. They have no idea whether he's good or not. No one has any idea whether he's good or not. Like you can know he's good at certain things, but you can't know that he's a good manager. Like I think they probably do get an initial boost because of kind of that Zidane effect.
Yeah.
So I think you're right about that. But in the long term, what are the odds that he turns into a genuine kind of like positive, plus manager above the average? Like you don't really know, and you know that Jardim is that. So that seems strange to me.
Who would you have gone for?
I wouldn't have got rid of Jardim. I'd have kept Jardim. Like by expected goals, they might not have been. They might not be sensational this season, but there's been like a 6-goal swing against them. Their defence should have been about 3 goals better. Their attack should have been about 3 goals better. That's a big difference overall after 8 games. But if I were to say goodbye to somebody like that, then I would probably look for somebody who I thought might at least kind of provide a bit of a shock to the system and had a history of working with young players. I mean, I always go back to it because I still can't believe he's there, but I just feel like get Roger Schmidt out of China and just see what happens. Like at least that's a manager with a plan that has succeeded in the past and who's developed young players. Henry, maybe he's good, maybe he's not, but they basically are just gambling.
Yeah, but I think they will get an initial boost. Let's go to the next quick fire question then. Where am I?
Where am I?
What,
the pub.
What players do
right.
FD admit they've gotten wrong? Brackets, thought they do good / bad, but it didn't turn out the way y'all predicted.
Who's
From
that from?
Michael Barrett.
All right, I thought his handle was where am I? This is difficult,
I've
isn't
got a
it?
number wrong. I mean, I've got a myriad.
Go on,
I'll go
lead the
probably
charge.
standouts, Luke Shaw and Alexis Sanchez recently. I
Okay.
backed Alexis Sanchez to hit the ground running at Man United under Jose. I thought Jose would get the best out of him.
That was
but it
part of stealing him under Man City's noses as well.
has not happened. I actually thought that Jose would get the best out of him. And I thought we'd see an upswing in his form by leaving Wenger and going under Jose. But not been the case. And Luke Shaw, who I wrote off at the start of the season, said that should be his last game in the United shirt, has fully proven me wrong. Fully. Now he's signed a new 5-year contract worth $160,000 a week. So
Jesus.
It's probably that level of
we
player.
literally have more money than Saints.
Yeah. I tend to maybe sit a little bit more on the fence than you, but there are players acquisitions I liked, and I'm thinking of Juventus at the moment with Piazza, and I'm thinking Bentancur, who I thought would have made a more substantial impression, let's say, so far. And I certainly thought Morata was the right purchase, even more so than Lukaku when Chelsea bought him in during the summer. So, and while I still think Morata is a very good player, and he's just scored in consecutive games for Chelsea for the first time since April, so it's back on. I really do worry about any sort of mental stumbling block he's got going on in that bonce of his, in that well-groomed, gelled bonce of his, because it feels like, I don't know if he's got the mentality to be the main source of goals for a team, and that's harder to quantify, and does not necessarily equate to good analysis, but I don't know if he's going to be that man for Chelsea.
He's not.
I think it'd be good, but
His head's not
I
right.
still think he's a good player. But I don't know, it's difficult. I kind of want to shy away from younger players here because quite often their progress is a little bit stop-start. So for instance, I thought Memphis Depay would be great when United signed him. As it was, you kind of had a neutered attack. And then a lot of people afterwards said, well, you said he was going to be great and he's been rubbish, but now he's kind of great again. So I mean, was I right? I don't really know,
okay.
or was I wrong? So with young players, and Luke Shaw's still very, very young. I think it's quite hard to draw conclusions. Whereas Sanchez, you were hoping he'd come in and immediately be great.
Yeah.
So that's a bit more of a difficult situation.
What about at your club? Because you're more personally invested in players from your club, aren't you? Like I was convinced Gary Hooper
You thought
was
Mkhitaryan
going to be a good
better than
player.
he is?
No, I think Mkhitaryan actually has been better than I thought he'd be. But
Really?
my issue with Mkhitaryan wasn't that I didn't think he was a good player, it's that I thought it was a stupid signing.
He's a player I think that I certainly got wrong. I thought he'd crush it at United.
Yeah, I think we
and
all
just
did.
didn't really turn up.
But his numbers in the Bundesliga were disgusting, and like
Yeah.
it's not to your detriment to go off numbers. People, when statisticians or people who like stats get things wrong, people are always like, numbers don't mean everything, but that's literally the best evidence you have at that time to make an informed decision.
And also, everyone does the same thing where they'll say, oh, well, so-and-so got 20 goals last season, so he'll be good. Oh, why isn't he scoring anymore? Like, everyone does this to some extent. Like, we have limited information. I don't see why you wouldn't try and get as much as you possibly can.
So a couple of players from your team then.
I thought Xhaka would be better than he was. With Xhaka, the difficulty is sometimes, like with Mkhitaryan, for instance, you're like, maybe if they'd had a different coach, he would have actually been a lot better. In fact, I think he's guaranteed to have been at least a bit better. With Xhaka, though, he was protected so much by Mahmoud Dahoud in that system at Borussia Mönchengladbach, and he's just not agile enough. He's not good enough at reading the game. He's a fantastic passer, I'll give him that. But I thought he would be better than he is. I thought Kolasinac would probably be more useful. He may well still be useful because he's only 24, so there's still time for him to turn into a decent player.
George's biggest criticisms of him were that he's fat and has no neck.
Yeah, but George's opinions on football are always unpredictable. So I guess those are the last couple where I was just kind of like a bit more hopeful than I had reason to be. But I thought Leno would be and he is. So there you go. I thought Socrates would be boy is he he's dreadful at football, and he always has been. I don't know. What about Celtic?
Oh, thanks, mate.
Let's move on.
Throw me a bone.
Let's move on.
I mean, it's generally easy to tell at Celtic who's going to make it. What's harder to tell is how far they go at the very top when they get to the sort of Premier League level. So with Van Dijk, easy to tell. Stop being rude. Easy to tell that he was going to be different gear. Kieran Tierney, I think the same is going to come true of him. 2 or 3 years, I'll be posting an emotional goodbye post on Instagram to KT. I did think, and my friends strongly disagreed with me at the time, that Gary Hooper would be an excellent signing for Norwich. And he got injured after scoring a couple of worldies, may I add.
Did you think the same of Aidan McGeady?
But he wasn't. Aidan McGeady.
And then he
It's
ended
a
up in
great
Russia.
shout.
Then he ended up in Russia.
Aidan McGeady. I mean, he's got a skill move named after him on FIFA. So is his career a failure? Probably not. No, but he I remember when he signed for Everton, and I thought he's past his prime, but this is the level of Premier League club I imagine him to be at. And a couple of Everton fans were like, he should never, ever, ever get a game again. Like he is literally the best five-a-side player, and doesn't, when he can't be asked, one of the worst 11-a-side players.
What about Boric? He was good for you, but he's been everywhere else.
Yeah, but when he left, he was kind of like 29, 30,
Yeah,
and he had a couple of good seasons at Bournemouth.
He was shocking at Southampton.
But anyone that beats up a mugger in central Glasgow, I don't care how he performs from there on in.
I mean, I do a bit.
Let's go on to personal questions. We're just
Now let's talk about Celtic some more. Adam
Matthews.
Matthews. No, go on.
Right, first personal question. What film that is generally considered good do you think is bad and why? This one comes from
I bet
David
you've
one.
got candidates.
Actually bad. I mean, there are movies that I don't like as much as everyone else does. I don't like Shawshank Redemption very much. I don't think it's very good. I hated The Dark Knight Rises. I think it's dreadful. The Dark Knight is good. The Dark Knight Rises is shockingly bad.
Wow.
It's disjointed. It's too long. The characters don't make sense. It's stop-start with the plot. Developments are just seemingly random. There are scenes that are put in because they thought they looked good on film, but they don't actually work in the plot. None of it works. It's just too all over the place. That's a
Joseph Gordon-Levitt's good in it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the actors are fine. Like, I don't blame the actors. I don't particularly like Anne Hathaway in it, but I also don't particularly like Anne Hathaway.
We'll talk about Anne Hathaway, just to flip the question on the head.
The Intern.
The Intern.
He loves
Intern.
it.
Oh, what a film.
The Intern is better than you expect it to be.
What's the actual question?
The Intern. What film do you think is good? Do you think is bad that is actually considered
but
good?
you
I've
flipped
flipped
it.
it.
Right,
I've gone that everybody hates it, but I think The Intern's a bloody delight. And if you're at home
I don't think
with your
people hate it.
girlfriend, oh, they do.
I think people thought it was going to be was better than they thought.
No, critically it got panned.
My wife was watching it the other day and she said, is he going to hit on her at some point? And I was like, it's not that sort of film. And she was like, is he going to die at some point? And I was like, it's not that sort of film.
It's an absolute die. If you're at home on a Sunday, which is today, go and get your girlfriend. Get a blanket.
Get her?
Go and get your girlfriend, get a blanket and watch the internet.
What else is
See,
bad?
I really
Years a
feel
Slave
like
isn't good.
I have to come up with a really original answer here because film means an awful lot to me.
I've got one, actually.
Go on.
What's the one where Leonardo DiCaprio
Gangs of New York.
grunts and gets more...
Oh, The Revenant.
The Revenant.
Yeah, The Revenant is
The
okay.
Revenant. Oh, The Revenant.
No, how many actors could pull off the physical
Mate,
performance
I'm
in The
not
Revenant?
denying, I think the acting is phenomenal in that film. The storyline is rubbish.
Well, it's just survival, isn't it? I mean, there
Danny
are,
Boyle's
there
not
are a
great.
couple of DiCaprio films that that I think that about. Like The Aviator bore the tits off of me. Hateful Eight was about an hour too long.
Well, it's
gorgeous.
horrendous. And
but
the worst murder mystery of all time.
The worst-
He's under the floorboards.
the worst reveal, possible. But other than that, like Tarantino's early stuff, absolutely love. I'm really struggling to think
Mean
of a really good
Streets
answer.
isn't good.
Mean Streets is good.
It's not. It's
My
really,
Baby
it's
is
really
the best intro song
That's
ever.
I think that's one of his worst films. I think.
But yeah, it was his first, wasn't it?
It's dreadful, man. It's not good.
Paddington, that's a great film.
But
Why are you just naming good films? Everyone likes Paddington. It's great. You know what's better? Paddington 2.
I haven't watched it yet.
It's
Don't
so
give me
good,
any
mate.
spoilers.
It's a romp.
Hugh Grant is a delight in
Oh,
it. The
I'm so
performance of
excited.
his career.
Love Actually. Everyone loves Love
that is
Actually. Every time it comes on, I think Richard Curtis. This is what American people now think English people are like.
That film is a abomination.
Toothy, laughy, happy-go-lucky. This is not an accurate representation of life here.
I feel like I could do this
Maze
all
Britain.
day.
Yeah, let's move on. Go on.
Who from Football Daily has the worst music taste? That comes from Oscar A.
McCubbin probably.
Ooh, I think there's a couple of contrasting music tastes. Like the stuff you listen to on your way in, it's absolutely, in my eyes, despicable. Like when he walks in and it's just a drum beat and it's 8:30 in the morning, I look at him and I think, I couldn't hate you any more in this moment, and he sits there and it pumps out of his ears and he doesn't turn it down, and I've just been by myself 15 minutes with a coffee thinking, good start to the day, and then that happens. I don't know how you listen to it. No words, no character, one instrument.
It's not one instrument.
But at the same time, like, you know what his saving grace is? Like,
Mad.
his saving grace is this. Like, what's your favourite song of all time?
Unfinished Symphony.
Sympathy, you mean?
Symphony.
The Unfinished Symphony? You mean Unfinished Sympathy, not by Massive Attack?
Yeah. And what is it? Unfinished
the name of the song.
Unfinished, unfinished whatever.
Sympathy.
Unfinished Symphony.
See, that makes me think there's hope for him, because that is a truly great song. Whereas McCubbin genuinely likes.
That's
like,
McCubbin's favourite song of all time, actually.
But McCubbin genuinely likes Robbie Williams.
I love Robbie Williams.
He goes to weird like psy-trance concerts.
I love Robbie
He's all
Williams.
over the place.
Yours is quite eclectic. We do like some of the same
Robbie
music.
Williams is a
I
delight.
acknowledge that mine's quite limited. If it doesn't have a guitar in it, I've not got a lot of time
Yeah,
for
Yeah,
it.
You
you
like-
are.
you like
You're
a-
up there with the worst music taste in the office for sure.
you
You've
like
been
a
to
sad white
the
man
fact that you've
music.
been to a Kasabian concert.
Are you mad?
You like Catfish
I
in
was
the
about to
Bottle,
throw
man.
myself
Shocking.
catfish in the bottom end. Oh, class. as
Dreadful.
well. I was about to throw myself
Horrible.
across the table at you then. Have you ever been to Kasabian concerts?
Why would anyone go to a
No.
concert?
Well, just me and
He's not from
100,000
Leicester.
other people.
All from Leicester. It's just the entire population of Leicester
Sake.
state.
God, I'm genuinely rattled.
Honestly, there's Kasabian Leicester kits in the Leicester team shop.
Yeah. So, Serge is a icon.
That is outrageous.
No one's an
man.
icon in
Who
there.
else has got a pretty poor music taste?
I actually don't know much
I'm
about
not the biggest fan of
Olivia's music taste.
George's music taste.
But George is very eclectic.
But we meet like easy 80s, I'm down for. Not even easy 80s, just 80s in general.
Hip hop, like
Yeah, hip-hop as
like
well.
MF Doom, we agree on. Joy Division, like
Can't really get down with Sam Obaseki's
Bit of
either.
Wu-Tang.
I don't really
He's
know.
a bit too much. He's a bit
Obviously,
too
over there.
grimy.
He likes whatever grime is out now.
Yeah.
Right.
But you pretend to like grime.
I don't like
because
grime.
You try and assimilate with
No,
the
I really
cooler
don't like
guys in the
grime.
office.
I just can't really get it. It's clearly not me, is it? Like
Saying that, when I went to Benicassim, Stormzy was absolutely superb. And I mean, I felt extremely white in that crowd singing along to him. But
Yeah. But he's like mainstream
Super.
grime,
Yeah,
isn't he? He's
exactly.
not
I
really even
feel like-
grime
I feel
anymore.
like
He's
a
just
lot
like a
of his fans
mainstream
are like
bloke.
that. Yeah.
I mean, he's done a collab with Ed Sheeran, hasn't he? Pretty
Yeah.
much takes him out of the grime scene.
I'm not really interested.
Zach's is pretty horrendous. Ed Sheeran, massive Ed Sheeran
He does
fan.
love Ed Sheeran.
Zach-
I forgot about
Massive
that.
Ed Sheeran fan.
Zach actually has the same music taste as like a divorcee, like a woman who's going for like a middle-aged woman who's going through a really hard time.
Yeah.
I will ruin this tape. I've not listened to Ed Sheeran in like 5 minutes.
That's stays in.
Right to you
This
guys.
stays in. Excellent.
Nonsense.
Why are you
Right.
lying?
Anyway, what's the next question?
The next one is the final one. If you came to power, what is the first thing you'd abolish?
What?
What, so if I became like
If you became
Prime Minister and had the
President,
power
whatever.
to abolish things, which
Yeah.
is not how it works.
No, but you can write a
what's-
presidential order.
They're quite like when we talked about mental health last week. So maybe one thing that's close to your heart that you actually think is feasible to change. Like mine is homelessness. How can homelessness be so rife? Like how are people living in tents outside of coffee shops where it's £5.60 to get a coffee and a fucking donut or something?
How do you just solve that though?
Well, I
Just
mean,
abolish it.
abolish
You can't
homelessness.
just abolish homelessness.
what do you mean?
President Hamill today has abolished
Well,
homelessness.
make more affordable homing, put more of an emphasis on social housing.
But I think abolish means
difficult to do that.
I mean, that would be is novel.
I mean, it's quite a difficult. I mean,
I'm
you've given me
thinking-
you made me omnipotent there, and then you're telling me to be realistic about it.
Yeah, true. That's kind of true.
So what
I
do
don't
you
know
guys
what mine
think?
would be.
I think I
I
would.
abolish cancer,
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, good move.
if feasibly possible.
It's a great move. God, what's a thing that you could do that would be... A thing that you could realistically do that would improve the lives of a lot of people is you could make women's sanitary products provided for free by the government, which is actually a real problem for homeless women specifically. Like it's a real physical danger for homeless women because they don't have tampons and septic shock. These things are really dangerous. Like it kills people.
There's
a
some
lot.
girls who've got this little thing called On the Ball going, wherein they're making all those sanitary products free at football clubs. They're like challenging all football clubs to do it, which is pretty cool, and they've been pretty successful with that. So someone's
their
already
link.
tackling that.
Put their link in the description
Yeah,
below, mate.
I think that should be. I think that should be kind of
That's pretty good on there.
legally prescribed. And also, I just think taxes should go up in public sector, and healthcare, schooling, all those things should be improved. I think that's generally. I think we should have a better social welfare.
One of
net.
mine-
I think we should have more of a left-wing.
One of
country,
mine,
basically.
Jerusalem should be the national anthem. It really should. It just really should.
It's a good song.
I
I
vow
like
to
it.
thee my country. I think it's better.
No, absolutely.
Jerusalem's quite ploddy and boring.
Jerusalem's an anthem in a stadium. You ever sung it in a stadium? It's an absolute bloody
I can
anthem.
imagine
It's
you
not great.
absolutely belting it out until you need your inhaler.
Yeah, I have, and I've needed my inhaler a lot of times.
Remember when that photo of him during a World Cup? When was it England beat Colombia in penalties?
Sweden.
Oh, England beat. That was just against Sweden. You look possessed.
Yeah, because
and
I
you could tell
was-
that every last bit of oxygen had left your
Yeah,
body at that
and
time.
then I-
You were
and then I
just
had
like a deflated balloon.
And then I had an asthma attack in the middle of the pub. But it was an atmosphere like no other, and I was effectively bleeding.
Yeah, because there was a man dying
Yeah,
on the
and
floor.
I was actually having an asthma attack. But that's the end of Sunday Vibes for yet another week. If you want to get your question answered next week, send it to us on Twitter with the hashtag Sunday Vibes, or leave it in the comments below. Make sure you hit the like button as well. Lads, what else is happening on the Football Daily Network?
Ooh.
Stat Wars the
What
league.
is happening?
Stat Wars the league. Darren
Very
Ben
tense.
Personal Mastermind is out. Does he top the league table? Yes, I've spoiled it for you. Still go and watch it. What else is there? All of our top 10s. Why not check out winners and losers for football games that are now 4 days old? Patrick?
Continental Club is obviously something you
Bang.
can check out as well. Yesterday, we will have done a live stream for the Football Social, and that is going to be going out pretty much every weekend. So make sure that you check the 3 o'clock fixtures, because we will be covering them. And occasionally we'll be
Good
doing a
plug.
Sunday fixture as well.
That's much better than mine. Jack Mate's on it as well this week, who we like his work, don't we?
And I believe, have we got Champions League fixtures coming up this
We
week?
have
Hopefully
next week.
Hopefully
Armchair fans are back.
Armchair fans for you.
Man United
Man
versus
United-
Juve, so you can see
Man
me
United, Juve.
ranting and raving about Manchester United
Yeah.
live in the flesh.
That could
as my
actually be
flesh
the end.
crawls.
That could be the end of your career.
It could be the end of my life if it goes to plan. Not if it goes to plan, that was weird, wasn't it? Alright,
Wow.
goodbye.